Let's face it, starting off your 2025-2026 campaign with 3 games in 4 nights and a pair of wins, it's a great situation for the Canadiens to be in coming home to face the Kraken on Tuesday. But there are a lot of things that still need to be worked out. I mentioned a few things during the post-game and in my regular shows, and fans wanted to know more. So I'm going to address it here. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Grumpy here. Kosta here from Puck Talk Montreal. And the reason I say grumpy is because somebody said that I was grumpy on my podcasts. Far from it. But I'll explain myself a little bit later. First things first, let's talk about our partners. And we're going to start today with cheapesttshirts.ca. Proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers, cheapesttshirts.ca brings unbelievable value. You'll always get the lowest prices plus same-day shipping, even next-day delivery, so your orders arrive fast. They've got over 1,000 products and more than 36 trusted brands, so their selection is unmatched. Cheapesttshirts.ca is the go-to source for businesses, event, apparel, printing companies, and resellers, or people just wanting the best deals on everyday clothing. Plus, enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes ordering online a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. Also, our other partner, Instacustoms. They're your number one destination for custom apparel printing. Rated the highest print shop in Canada with over 3,000 Google reviews, a 4.9 star rating, and they were nominated for a 2024 Canadian Business Choice Awards. They print on all your favorite clothing, plus coffee and travel mugs, and yes, they even offer embroidery. Most orders are printed and shipped the very same day, and larger orders in less than 3 days with free shipping. Open 7 days a week, they're located on Stanley Street in downtown Montreal. Easy to remember because it ties in with the Habs' goal of winning the Stanley Cup. So whether it's for yourself, a loved one, or your business, trust Instacustoms. Visit them in person or order online at instacustoms.com. So here we are. Three games into the season, the Canadiens with just one loss against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm going to get back to the whole fact that I thought the goaltending was the issue in that game. I thought the Canadiens dominated most of it, but I've already talked about that. I'm going to get it out of the way. But one of the questions I was asked, and I think it was my old buddy Brad Siegel that asked it in the comments, was about the concept of scoping and what that means as far as goaltending is concerned. I say it a lot, but the term scoping itself comes from a telescope, where a telescope, in order to focus, has to extend itself out further or closer in order to get a clearer picture of what they're looking at. The same holds true for a goaltender. When a goaltender scopes out, it means they're creating a smaller target for their opponent. I'll give you an example. Believe it or not, I still have my catcher's mitt from back in the day when I played junior baseball. But anyway, I digress. When I hold my catcher's mitt here, you still see quite a bit of the background, right? Well, let me scope towards the camera. And the further out I come, the less you see. It's the same idea with a goaltender. The further out they come from their net, the less of the net a shooter gets to see. Here's the trick, though. A goaltender has to be in perpetual motion. It's not about just coming out to the top of the crease and staying there. You need to recognize the play around you. You need to realize how the attack is forming so that you know what your next move is going to be if a shot doesn't come in. Say, for example, somebody like Connor Bedard is coming in on a 3-on-2. He's got the puck on his stick. You realize that there's 2 wingers coming in with you. Is one covered? Is the other covered? You have to take a quick look. It's not about turning your head. You use your peripheral vision. You can see your defenseman. And so as I'm looking at you, my peripheral vision, I could see my fingers here. So I could see both guys coming in while I'm focusing on Bedard. I could see whether or not there's a defenseman on this side, the defenseman on this side. If I see this guy come in and he gets by my peripheral vision and he disappears, I know that I have to move quickly towards my post. It's something I register, right? But for Bedard, I still have to remain out to cover more net than I would if I was back on my goal line. And now, as I mentioned before, the only goaltender I have ever seen who has been fantastic as far as playing goal line goaltending, for lack of a better term, was Henrik Lundqvist. He was always on his goal line, but he was big enough and quick enough to be able to cover most of it. As he got older, of course, his reflexes slowed down and people started scoring more goals, at which point he finally decided to retire. Although, I think with a little adjustment in his game and an ability to move back and forth in the crease, he could have prolonged his career by another 5 years, but he didn't really have to. You know, after all those years in the NHL, why go through the motions if you see around you that the team is rebuilding, right? Anyhow, enough of Henrik Lundqvist. Getting back to what I'm talking about with the scoping in and out. I tried to get a couple of examples, not only of scoping, but of rebound control. Because a lot of you, Brad included, have said that, Montembeault's goal rebound control is relatively good. Now, last season, we saw him all the time allow rebounds into the slot. That's a no-no for any goaltender. And why? Because his gloves are out of position, right? As a goaltender, this is a rule of thumb. You never have your gloves close to you. It would be like being a T-Rex in nets, right? You have no mobility. So you're told, extend your arms out so that this way you have more free motion with your hands. Your blocker is always facing forward, so it's facing the shooter. And doing that, you force your stick and your paddle to be flat so that you use it to close off your 5-hole, okay? It's common sense. It's not, you could try it yourselves. Put your hands up close and try to move. You know how that is, right? So when I talk about that, you look at Sam Montembeault and you say to yourself, okay, why is he giving up bad rebounds? Well, number one, he kicks his legs out really hard. And I've talked about this previously, about the type of pads he's using, how new those pads are, how they're not worked in, the actual angle on the bottom part, on the vertical base of that pad that would allow the pucks to go more towards the corner instead of when he kicks out, them being kicked out into the slot. But that's another story for another day. But here's an example of Monty having absolutely putrid rebound control. And it's on a shot from Tyler Bertuzzi from last night. Bertuzzi came in along the right wing. He let go of a simple wrist shot. Nothing dangerous. But watch Monty. Bertuzzi takes the shot, and Monty, it hits the inside of his blocker, goes flying into the corner, and he has no idea where it is until it hits the boards. And watch Monty. Look closely. Puck down? Nope. Had no idea. Only when he heard it hit the boards did he realize that, hey, my rebound's in the corner. Obviously, with that shot, going to the blocker side, he should have been able to guide it over to his right, at which point he would slide across and cover the right-hand side of the net. That's not what he did. He took it on the wrong part of his blocker, and it could have led to something a little bit more dangerous given the fact that he didn't know where the puck was. It's an integral part of goaltending, guys, to understand where you're directing the puck, right? Giving up a rebound, every goalie does it. The only goalie who was ever perfect at deadening pucks was the late Pelly Lindbergh for the Philadelphia Flyers. The puck would hit him and just drop in front of him. He would never kick it out. And it was a skill that no other goaltender has had since. And he used to use the old horse feather pads, the ones that used to take on water, right? The thick brown ones. So it was a real skill. But when you look at today's goaltenders, right, the way the butterfly is, the way it forces your legs outwards in order to cover more net, you're prone to kick your legs out more and create rebounds. There's a variance in style there, of course. But when you know you're going to create rebounds, the trick is to control them. And with that particular example, you realize that Monty is not controlling his rebounds. Now, getting back to the whole scoping issue. Here's an example of a shot that should have never even touched the crossbar, but it did. And I would be remiss. I think it came off the stick of Teravainen as this puck came across right onto his stick. He rips it from the dot, and Monty, going down on his knees, has it go. Watch how much space there is because he's back in his net. The entire top corner is open, and it comes back down to the fact that he's not scoping out and cutting down the angle, right? As a goaltender, you need to make yourself as large as possible, getting as close to the puck as possible in order to reduce the amount of space around you. It's like a defenseman blocking a shot. Is it easier to block the shot when you're standing a foot in front of your goalie or a foot in front of the player taking the shot? It's a rhetorical question. We all know the answer to it, right? The same holds true for a goaltender. The closer you are to the shooter, the less likely they are to beat you with a shot because you're covering more net. It's technique. It's all about physics and technicality, right? So let's take a look at somebody who did it right last night, and that's Spencer Knight, who had a fantastic game for the Blackhawks. Watch him here as he comes out to take the angle away from Nick Suzuki, right? Suzuki comes across the line. Look at the space he has. Look where Knight is. He's not back in his crease. He's outside his crease above it to take away the angle. That's an example of scoping out. And then when I talk about motion and moving around in your crease, it's not about scrambling. It's about logical movement to be able to get yourself in the best position possible to stop a puck. So here is Spencer Knight on a goal front scramble where you see him go from post to top of crease, than to post and diagonally out to cover more space. Watch him carefully in this example where he'll come out as the shot comes in. Watch, he's out, bang, backs up to the post, then comes out towards Slafkovsky to take away the angle. Here it is again. I tightened it up so you could see it more. Okay? He comes out to the top of the crease, takes the shot away there from Caulfield, goes to the post, then comes across and comes to the top of the crease again in his butterfly to take away that rebound opportunity from Slafkovsky. Perpetual motion, movement. Those are all things that goaltenders work on non-stop. Listen, I trained my own daughter to be a goaltender. And before I even looked at teaching her how to catch a puck or using her blocker, there were two specific things I worked on from the time she was 9 until she was 12. Okay? The first thing I did was I worked on her footwork in the crease. Post to post, diagonally out, hard pushes, etc. Why? Because being that you're only 9 to 12 and the net is 6x4, you're not covering most of it. So you need to make sure you get yourself out to the top of the crease as quickly as possible. Being that you're teaching the butterfly, you teach the guys to slide out and go towards their target. And it's always movement, right? So it would be post, diagonal, and constant. She would do it for about 3 minutes straight. No questions asked. I would occasionally throw in the post-to-post movement, but at 9 years old, you start with a shuffle. By the time you're 12, given the strength you build in your legs, you go with the full slide going post-to-post. And so goaltenders learn this really early on. So the question I ask myself is, why get away from that work when you're at the professional level? Because it seems to me, given the way I look at Monty and his work in the crease, that he is not following any type of regimen to be able to continue working on his movement from the top of a crease and back. You see how quickly Spencer Knight, it's one push to get from the top of your crease back to the post. But you need to know where you are. That is another problem that Monty has. Very often, he loses his net. You saw the Bedard goal yesterday when the puck hit him. He went halfway across his net instead of the entire way across. Why stop? When you see the guy up at the top of the crease, he was at his post, just like Spencer Knight did, a diagonal push out to the top of the crease, and you have the entire thing covered, and you're above Bedard where he is in front of the net, so the likelihood of him actually making contact with the puck is less likely. But again, it all comes down to technique, and this I blame more on coaching than I do the goaltender. All right, because Monty has made very great strides, and I will give him credit where credit is due. From the time he came to Montreal until now, he has made great strides in doing better in front of the net. But he is not among the elite goaltenders in the National Hockey League. And the one thing that I worry about more than anything else, and there are plenty of people in the chat from last show that agreed with me, that I don't have confidence in his ability to stop a puck in big moments. Why? Because his technique is off. It's not because I don't think he can. I've seen him do it before. Logically, I know that he has the capability of doing it. But I don't believe that he can do it on a consistent basis. And that's the problem that I have. When you have a starting goaltender, you need to have a belief that he's going to be able to make a save when you need it, especially when you're in a one-goal game like last night. Now, granted, he wasn't called upon to make a big save towards the end of the game, right? The Canadiens scored with 15.7 seconds left, so there wasn't much opportunity for Chicago to really try to get any type of momentum with an empty net. But that being said, there have been other games, in the Toronto game, as an example, where he needed to make big saves, and those saves did not come. And they weren't on difficult shots. They were on shots that were pretty mundane. The Riley go-ahead goal on Wednesday night, all of that happened because Monty was back in his net, and he didn't come out. If he would have come out even a foot further than he would have covered most of the net, and Riley would have had nothing to shoot at. But he didn't do it. So those are the things that need to be corrected. And while Eric Raymond, the goaltending coach for the Montreal Canadiens, says his fundamentals are good, he's wrong. And again, I'm not an NHL goalie coach by any stretch, but I know enough about what I've learned from different goalie coaches, including Kim St. Pierre's father, Andre, that no, the fundamentals are wrong because he's allowing goals in that should be relatively easy to stop if the technique was right. So that's where I'm going to leave that. Okay. Brad, you've got your explanation about the scoping in and out, right? I'm not going to put my catcher's mitt in your face again because I know it's annoying. But if his technique were to get better, and if it simply work on his footwork and the placement of his hands, he would go a long way to being better. Those are the three things that I think that Monty needs to work on is 1, his footwork, 2, his hand placement and stick placement, and 3, his play recognition. Because it's not happening. And it's easy enough to teach with all the tools that coaches have at their discretion right now. All you have to do is take a lot of situations from the camera behind the net, which is the same vantage point as the goaltender, and have him recognize what plays are coming towards him. And then ask him the question, why didn't you see this? What was the problem with this? What would you do to correct it? That's the only way that a goalie is going to be able to put it into his head. And a lot of that has to come, once again, from his goalie coach. So the work's not done here. It never is with a goalie. Because from one year to the next, teams adapt. Right? We've seen this before. Goalies have good years. Goalies have off years. Sometimes it's because their skill set goes down. Other times it's because they become set in their ways and they don't want to move forward with their ability to play. That's what I don't want for Monty. And that's what I don't want for the Montreal Canadiens. I want them to continue to get better. Monty's development is part of that. If it's good for Dobish, it should be good for Monty. Not just because Monty's the starting goaltender. And I assure you, if they start seeing better results from Dobish than Monty, that may very well flip. Because the Canadiens have every aspiration this year of not being a wild card team and comfortably making the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that respect. But again, you want more explanation on scoping? I think it's pretty clear. It's not rocket science, right? But feel free to ask the question, put it in the comments, and let me know what you thought of the goaltending performance last night overall, right? I know that I'm harsh with Monty. And again, being a former goalie myself, yes, I'm harsh. Because these are all the same things that I was yelled at when I was playing. Of course, it was a different time because I was, back in the 80s and 90s, coaches yelled a hell of a lot more than they do nowadays because we weren't as sensitive back then, but that's another story for another day. But it was a different time and a different culture. But nowadays, you need to be able to adapt. It's as simple as that. And so you have to be willing to make changes to your game, even if they're uncomfortable. That's something that Monty's got to do, and that's something that Raymond has to bring forward to Monty. We'll see what happens there. Now, the other question I got yesterday was from Hackman6, and it was in regards to zone entry for the Montreal Canadiens on the power play. I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about their power play formation and the 5-on-3 as well, because we know that's putrid as hell. But I'll start with what Hackman6 asked about, and that is zone entry. And in order to do that, I'm going to crack out the whiteboard. There it is. So now, here's your conventional formation as the Canadiens break out of their zone. You've got Hudson. Say the puck is deep in the Canadian zone. He's behind the net. Slafkovsky and Caulfield, they're hovering. And as Hudson starts to skate out, these two guys start to swing in behind him. And as he continues to skate, player one tries to angle him to one side or the other, right? What happens normally is as Hudson gets closer, he'll send the puck back. Where's my puck? I can't get my puck, but anyway. It's program stuff to work with, but anyway. Let's assume that the puck is on Suzuki's stick right now, okay? For argument's sake. So, player one will bypass and allows Hudson to go by, and then he'll focus on Suzuki coming up the ice. What the Canadiens did last year was they had Hudson up top and they only had Suzuki back. Now what they're doing is they're bringing two guys up in the slingshot so that they can exchange the puck and force player one to move across to try to cover. And that happens more often than not, especially when Caulfield has the puck and he's coming up the right side. He'll play it across over to Suzuki, and when Suzuki's got the puck, player one will go from covering there to covering here. Then Suzuki will come in as they back out, right? And you see them backing into the zone, and Suzuki will bring it to the line. But the thing is, all these players move up, and there's one thing that all these guys have in common, right? Take a look at the space. What do you see? Nothing. There's really no space for the players to get through. Why is that? Because Bolduc and Slafkovsky are more stationary. They don't move, right? Depending on what side the puck is coming to, So let's say, for example, Suzuki goes over towards Boldzyk's side. Player one will come across, and as Suzuki comes across the line, Boldzsyk would come in support on that side, right? But again, you've got a cluster. All these four players, whether you're looking at player two, player one on the defensive side, or Suzuki, they're all together, okay? So you've got a cluster. And when it comes to the power play, that's the one thing you want to avoid. So what do? Well, let's go back to the original breakout formation for the Canadiens, right? Where you've got player one in, all these three guys are up in the neutral zone, right? And so you've got your conventional defending 1-3 on the penalty kill, which is the team in black, okay? You've got player one watching Hudson, and you've got Slafkovsky and Suzuki. What they do is they swing, right? One guy swings, instead of going out towards that side, what they do is they swing inwards and out. So they swing around the circle like that in order to create separation from player one, right? As Hudson comes out, player one comes forward, and then the puck goes to the wing, right? Then you've got, if the puck comes to this side of the ice, where Hudson is, Boldzsyk would swing across the middle, and Slafkovsky would extend himself out to run flat across the far blue line. This would force the defenders back. And what you see here is a wide open neutral zone, if that's the case, right? So the puck would come across, say, to Hudson. Hudson, coming up with Boldzsyk, could either skate the puck up, give it to Boldzsyk, because the middle of the ice is where you want to be. And then you could have a little bit of a crisscross, or Boldzsyk can come across the line, and then do what Gretzky used to do. When you come across the line here as player one is chasing and everybody else is catching up to the play, right? This guy's backing off. And as this guy is here, right, what's going to happen is player 4 or 3 are going to come up towards Boldzsyk, and Boldzsyk can simply delay, allowing Caulfield the time to come to the blue line. And then Boldzsyk can put it back to Caulfield as these guys back in and form their diamond or box or whatever you want. Hudson would go here. Slafkovsky would make his way to the net front, and all of a sudden, your power play would be set up. The pass would go Boldzsyk to Caulfield to Hudson, and as the puck got to Hudson, that's when you would see either Caulfield come down or cut towards the middle to get to the bumper, so that if a pass went to Suzuki on the far side, then he would pass it into the bumper to Slafkovsky, or actually vice versa. So Caulfield would come down, Boldzsyk would go to the bumper, and then it would be a bang, bang, 1, 2, 3, and a shot on goal with Slafkovsky at the net side for a rebound. I'm not one to be a fan of the slingshot. It generates speed as you're coming into the zone. That's great for 1 or 2 players tops. But the whole idea behind the power play, and you can revisit any coaching philosophy on this, the idea on the power play is to create small, odd man situations. How do you do that? One of them is exactly how I showed you, right? Where you've got Boldzsyk swinging the puck in and going to the hash marks, playing it back to Caulfield, and then you've got movement. Boldzsyk can either go to the bumper, pass can go from Hudson over to Suzuki, over to Boldzsyk, or Hudson, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Boldzsyk to the net. There's all these different options, and quick puck movement would be able to generate all that, right? And we've seen that from the Canadiens. Their ability to move the puck, it has gotten better over the years. That goes without saying. But the thing that has been missing more is movement. You have to be less predictable. When you take a look at when Patrick Laine is on the power play, there's no real unpredictability. The minute the puck is on Laine's stick, you know he's shooting. So what do? As a defending team, give him the shot. Let your goalie take care of it, because that's his job. In the meantime, you cover the other 4 guys on the power play. Easy peasy, no issue whatsoever. But the idea of the break-in is to be able to generate more space. Another break-in that I like is, I'll give you this example. As I reset the whiteboard very quickly here, right? Of course, the middle is empty. You've got the 1 guy in on the forecheck, 3 guys in the neutral zone, and here you go. So now Hudson would come up, okay? Now, as Hudson comes up, he dishes the puck, let's say, over to Suzuki. And Suzuki's got it on the far side, which forces player 1 across. As Suzuki gets to the red line, Caulfield and Slafkovsky start to bolt and move forward, backing this defender off. Okay? Now, Suzuki has a choice, right? And Hudson would come up on this side to cover as well. So you'd have 3 guys on one side of the ice. With Boldzsyk sealing the boards on that side, Suzuki could either chip the puck in softly to the far side corner, which would be let's say the corner where Slafkovsky's in right now. Or he could rim it hard around the boards, forcing it to go around to Slafkovsky, right? And Hudson and Caulfield. With this situation right here, if player 3 were to come down, or if player 3 would stay at the net front and player 1 would come down, what would happen? You'd still have an unmatched situation on that side. And more often than not, your team will come up with a puck, especially with a big guy like Slafkovsky on that side, and vice versa, was the opposite side. Bolduc would be able to be that physical guy and take the puck away. That's another zone entry that you can use that we never see from the Canadiens. Why? Because of the fact that a lot of people want to get away from the dump and chase. They talk about possession hockey. But possession hockey isn't all about having the puck on your stick, right? When you dump a puck into the corner, your idea is, I'm not giving up possession. I'm creating a new possession because I don't have it on my stick. I'm throwing it into the corner, and I'm allowing my cluster of players to go in there and get it. One player hard on the puck, second player in support to dig it out, and a third player there as a passing option. That's what you would have if this were your situation right here. Right? Slafkovsky would be the guy first on the puck if it was there. Defenseman number 1 would be in the corner. That would be player 4. Player 1 would come in and support. 2 would be back here. And then you'd have Caulfield here and Hudson just up the boards. Right? Suzuki would be around here somewhere. And then Bolduc would come down in case the puck rimmed around the boards. Who gets the puck if it's a 3-on-2? More often than not, it's the Canadiens. So you've got different options to bring the puck into the zone. The problem with the Canadiens, though, is they keep using that bloody slingshot. Whether it's 1 or 2 guys coming up the ice, the idea is still the same. All the opposing team has to do is bunch up at their blue line. The minute they do that, they limit the amount of space a puck carrier has to bring the puck in, and they force you to either dump it or make a short pass at the opposing blue line, at which point they could pressure the puck back carrier, who more often than not gets flustered and loses the puck, and it goes back down into the Canadian zone. I don't like the slingshot at all. It is not something as a coach that I have ever used or suggested to use. Why? Because you're giving the puck to the last guy back. I've never been the guy who's been a proponent of that, especially when the last guy back is not a defenseman. Right? Because when something happens, if there's a turnover, or if he mishandles the puck, or it hops over his stick, or whatever the case may be, you're putting your team in a precarious position. And I hate it. Absolutely, positively hate it. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about when it came to the power play is the 5-on-3. Because I can't remember the last time the Canadiens actually scored a goal 5-on-3, because they are always, and I mean always, putting themselves in a position where they can't get anything on goal. It's a tough thing to do. So now here's the thing. Let me bring up the whiteboard again. All right. When the Canadiens have possession of the puck, normally what opposing teams do is they use an inverted triangle outlined here, where they've got 2 players closer to the blue line and 1 player at net front. Normally on a 5-on-3, the player at the net front is just trying to box out whoever might come in. So if Slafkovsky goes to the front of the net, he'll try to box him out to give his goalie an ability to stop the puck, which would open areas here for Suzuki. The problem is that when you're using a 1-3-1 like the Canadiens do even at 5-on-3, you limit your ability to get the puck number 1 into whoever might be in the bumper. In this case, it's Suzuki, or to be able to use the shots from the flanks, because you've got 2 guys up there covering the point. So what do? To me, it's simple. You move somebody back up to the point and you go to an umbrella instead of using a 1-3-1. So this is your umbrella. You got 1 guy towards the front of the net, this being Slafkovsky, and then your umbrella has 4 guys basically across the top, just above the hash marks, right? So you've got 2 guys at the point. It could be a forward and a defenseman, or it could be 2 defensemen. So in a 5-on-3, if you really want to take advantage of it, what I would do is I put Dobson out there along with Caulfield, because Dobson has that big clapper. So Caulfield would be in there. And I think the guy that I would take out here in this particular situation would most likely be Bolduc or Slafkovsky at the 5-on-3. But we'll leave it as is for now. So what would happen? Well, if the puck was up at the point, what you would normally have is, let's say Slafkovsky's got the puck, player 2 would come up, and he would try to put himself between these 2 players at the top, being Caulfield and Slafkovsky. Look at that. That's a 2-on-1. right? The only one-on-one you have here is in front of the net, and that's very normal, right? But you've got a 2-on-1 here between Caulfield, Suzuki, and player 2 represented there. Or you've got Hudson on the opposite side with Bolduc and player 1 on the opposite side, right? But if it's a 1-3-1, look at that. You don't have those situations, do you? So let's go back to the umbrella again. And you can move the puck across the top, okay? And here's the easy part, right? You can actually shade Hudson over, Caulfield over, Suzuki over. Player 2 would shade over. And if you could, you can go around the horn, right? From Bolduc to Hudson to Slafkovsky and over to Suzuki for a shot on goal, at which point Slafkovsky would put himself there. Or you could actually go from Bolduc straight to Caulfield to Suzuki on a touch pass. Or you can go straight to the net using Slafkovsky on the back door and bring Bolduc down. You bring Bolduc down, player 1 comes over, Hudson comes over to here, Caulfield comes here, Bolduc goes to Hudson, 1 touch to Caulfield. This guy's racing back, boom, shot on goal. The 1-3-1 is what Guy Boucher used as his power play. And for a very long time, at the junior level especially, Guy Boucher was called the guru of the power play. But when he brought the 1-3-1 to the NHL, it was debunked very quickly. The 1-3-1 is a very good power play to run, but in order to run it effectively, you've got to vary your different points of attack. It can't always be the same thing. It can't always be a one-timer from your left flank from either Caulfield or Laine. It can't be, shots from the blue line, which we never see, which we need to see. And that's something that I would take Lane Hudson, move him aside and say, you worked on it in the summer, start using your shot. It can't be always about distributing to the guys with a bigger shot than you, because the bigger shot doesn't always end up in the net. More often than not, big shots miss the net. It's the little shot, the one that's targeted, the one that's accurate, that hits the net, generates a rebound, and produces goals in front. You saw it yesterday. Caulfield goes to the front of the net, shoots on goal, off the goalie's pad to Bolduc, and into the net. It doesn't have to be a big bomb. It could be from in close. And that's where the Canadiens have to get away from the bomb. Is it nice to watch? Absolutely. When the bomb is perfect, and it's normally not, but when it is perfect, it's a beautiful sight to see on a hockey rink. But you know what's more beautiful than that? Pucks in the back of the net. Any way you can get them. Garbage goals. Yesterday the Canadiens game winner went off Spencer Knight's stick. Nobody touched it. Not Renzel, not Slafkovsky. It was the goal stick. And if you watch the replay, the goal stick moves. And was that a one-timer? No. It was a quick shot from Goalie along the ice looking for a tip, and he got one. It happened to be from a stick that nobody was holding. But that's the idea here. Defensemen need to shoot the puck 6 inches to a foot off the ice to allow for deflections. When defensemen shoot for the top corner, 99% of the time they miss. Why? Because it's a very fine location from that distance. If he's inside the top of the circles, by all means, take the rip. But when you're at the blue line, you're more effective if you're putting a shot on goal with a little bit of velocity. I'm not saying it has to be overpowering, but on goal and generating rebounds, forcing the goaltender to make saves, getting your players to converge on the net and collapsing either the inverted triangle or in a 5-on-4, the box. And once you collapse it, you get possession of the puck again. If you move it back to the point quickly, you get another opportunity to shoot the puck on goal. Those are all things that the Canadiens normally don't do because they don't converge. They don't close. They stay wide. If you take a look at Laine, the majority of his shots come from outside the faceoff dot. No. When the puck is on the opposite side from Laine, where he should be is hovering at the top of the circle on the opposite side and then shading towards the dot so that when Hudson lays the puck on a platter for him, he can crank it at an angle that's going to hit the net and not miss because his angle is too fine. Those are all things that, we learn early when we learn to play the game of hockey. Reduce your angle, play inside the dots, capitalize on the mid-ice lane and control it. And when you control the middle of the ice, and that's the entire area of the ice that's between the dots, when you can control that area, you win hockey games. That's what the Canadiens need to focus generating their offense from. When they do that, they have success. From the flanks, not so much. It's few and far between. Not everybody's going to shoot over the goalie's shoulder and pop it into the corner because the goalie's not on his angle. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Now, I came out and I started the show earlier with a comment about, hi, grumpy here. And it was a comment from somebody who was joining the show from the first time. And it's not grumpiness. I just want to bring that. It's not that I'm grumpy. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about this team. Always have been since the time I was a kid. And I'm passionate about the game of hockey. I like to see it played right? And there's no team out there that's perfect by any stretch. But I'm not grumpy. And I'll say this to you. I had a heart attack 5 years ago. The fact that grumpiness is completely out of my system. Can't afford to be grumpy anymore for health reasons. Okay? But I can be passionate and I can wear my emotions on my sleeve. And when the Canadiens make mistakes, yes, I'm going to be passionate about it and I'm going to point them out and I'm going to be honest about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat what I have to say. I said it from the very beginning when I started this channel. I'm not creating a fanboy channel here. This channel is for hockey fans that want to hear the truth the way I see it, right? And again, I could be wrong, but it's the truth the way I see it. And you can argue and we can go back and forth, and that's great. It's all I ask for. Banter, intelligent banter, not finger pointing or insults, right? If you insult me, as long as it's not my kids, I can take it. But I'm not grumpy, okay? I never will be in my life again because I've got too much good going on to be grumpy about anything, right? Especially over the game of hockey. But I can be passionate, and a lot of hockey fans are. Ask Vidak in the comments. He's about as passionate as they come, right? Every single one of his comments is about 4 pages long, and it takes me a little bit of time to read them and understand them because they're so long and he jumps from one subject to the other, but it's still great. I love them, so keep them coming. And the same goes for anybody else out there. Bring your comments in. Ask your questions. I have no problem talking about stuff, as you can see. I try to bring out as many visual aids as I can. I try to show you guys as much as I can what I think the play should look like. And we can agree to disagree because coaching philosophies are like hockey cards, right? You can have 100 of them that are similar, and then you can have 1,000 of them that are all different. So it's fine. Put it out there. Ask me the question. Let me know. What's your philosophy? Do you think I'm wrong about the way the Canadiens bring the puck into the zone? Would you like to see a variance so that other teams are forced to defend the Canadiens differently and give the Canadiens different opportunities to bring the puck into the offensive zone? I say yes. And it doesn't have to be 4, 5, and 6 different zone entries. It could be 2 or 3, depending on the situation. Right? One opens up the middle of the neutral zone. The other one creates speed going into the offensive zone. It depends who's out there. It depends on what you want to do. If you've got small defensemen on the opposing team and you want to chip the puck deep in and punish them physically, go for it. If the other team has bigger defensemen and you want to avoid the physicality, then carry it in. All different philosophies, all good, depending on the situation. After all, hockey is all about situational play. But tell me what you think. And again, if you have more questions, like Hickman 6's question or Brad's question, by all means, put it in the chat and I'll bring it up. Thanks once again to our partners, instacustoms.com and cheapesttshirts.ca. And thank you, as always, for following. And be sure to give the videos a thumbs up so that, you can show people how much you actually love us and we can grow the channel even more. Tomorrow, I come to you with a preview of Canadiens home opener versus the Seattle Kraken. We'll talk soon.